so over this idea even of healed or unhealed or fawning or not fawning. It's like, let's be real here. I still have a body. I still have a nervous system, and I still live in a context where there are more hierarchies than I could sit here and name right now. There are power structures everywhere we turn. My body is going to fawn because that's where it found some semblance of control or power when I had none. And I don't want to live there all the time. I want to have more flexibility. I want to have more agency. I want to have more choice. And I think we can find those things. But if we keep shaming people for having a fawn response and for staying there as long as their body needed to, those choices, that agency, it's likely never going to come because the shame is too high. And you know what we need in order to drop our defenses is to also be able to drop a little bit of the shame. And
what is fawning? According to Merriam-Webster, fawning is defined as to court favor by a cringing or flattering manner and to show affection. Coined by Pete Walker, author of the book Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving, fawning is known as the fourth F in the trauma responses repertoire, the other three being fight, flight, and freeze. Pete has observed that fawning tends to be a main trauma response in codependent people. Pete defines codependency as the inability to express rights, needs, and boundaries in relationship. It is a disorder of assertiveness that causes the individual to attract and accept exploitation, abuse, and/or neglect. I've heard experts say that fawning is a trauma response that develops when all other trauma responses have failed. This happens to be the main trauma response that allowed me to survive and escape my abusers with my life. This week, I am thrilled to share my conversation with Dr. Ingrid Clayton, a fellow survivor of narcissistic abuse who developed complex PTSD. Ingrid is a clinical psychologist. In this episode, Ingrid talks about how writing her memoir, Believing Me, and self-publishing was crucial to shaping her healing journey, and how narcissistic abuse impacts our voices. Ingrid and I talk about the infamous fawning trauma response and the importance of reclaiming this survival strategy. Also, we dive into the importance of releasing shame to become able to change and heal our relationship with our trauma responses, what to expect of her upcoming book, Fawning, and so much more. Hi, I am Raysa, a survivor of narcissistic abuse, and I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and you are listening to Hello Trauma Brain, a podcast where I share my experiences living with complex PTSD. My hope is this podcast can help destigmatize mental illness and provide support to anyone diagnosed with C-PTSD who thinks they might have it or has a loved one with this diagnosis. Quick reminder, I am not a licensed psychologist or mental health care professional, and this podcast is not meant to replace nor substitute the care of psychologists, other mental or medical health care professionals. If you think you might have complex PTSD or any of the conditions or disorders mentioned in this podcast, please reach out to your primary care or mental health care provider. Any individuals or resources mentioned in this podcast are not sponsoring Hello Trauma Brain. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by this week's guest are solely their own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Hello Trauma Brain and the host. This episode may reference trauma or abuse, and listener discretion is advised. Remember, you can always pause or skip this episode at any time. And now, let's get back to the episode. Hello, dear survivors, and welcome to this episode of Hello Trauma Brain. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are listening on YouTube, a gentle reminder to hit the like button and subscribe to let me know this episode was helpful. I want to officially welcome any new listeners and welcome back any of you returning to the podcast. As always, I wish you didn't need this content, but I am so glad that you are here, and I really hope that this serves as a tool for your healing journey. Quick check in. I am taking in how different this holiday weekend is going for me as opposed to last year. To give you some context, I had scheduled the conversation with this week's guest for May of 2024. And you heard me correctly, it was supposed to be a year ago. Last year, I'm not gonna lie, I was not in the best place mentally speaking. According to the notes that I took last year before my conversation with Ingrid, apparently I had a panic attack the day before. And back then, I was still struggling with how to set things up for recording. I did not have the microphone I have now. I was using Zoom, and that was very challenging, to be honest. And then the day arrived, and Ingrid had an emergency, and we had to postpone. And then after that, summer hit, and last summer was really challenging for me. And if you go back to the episodes from May and June, you can hear some of the struggles there. And I want to say some of the things happened even during the hiatus between season 1 and season 2. But with everything happening and things just feeling overwhelming, it took me a minute to try to reschedule my conversation with Ingrid. And part of it was I didn't feel as worthy. And I tend to hyper focus on the fact that I don't have that many followers yet and things like that. And it's one of those things where like I second guess the value I can bring. And I need to work on that, of course. And I want to say things happen exactly as they needed to, because as this new May rolled around and we scheduled our conversation, I not only had a better setup for recording virtual guests, I feel like I'm also on a better space mentally speaking. And the conversation we had is beautiful. I can't wait to share it with you. A few quick things I want to add, especially for those of you that are new to hearing about Ingrid. Ingrid survived narcissistic abuse from her step parent. Also, at one point, I make a quick reference to betrayal blindness, and that is a phenomenon explained by Jennifer Fried and Pamela Burrell that captures what happens in the brain of a person that's getting abused by someone they depend on for their survival. When betrayal blindness kicks in, the brain will either hide, reshape, or remember the abuse differently in order to make it possible for that person to stay in that relationship. And because this tends to be unconscious, the person is not aware that this is happening. The footage for only the conversation portion of this episode will be available on the YouTube channel and on Spotify. I got so many nuggets of wisdom from listening to Ingrid. And at this point, I am seriously reconsidering rebranding the interview series because they keep feeling like conversations to me as opposed to a formal interview. I totally welcome your thoughts on the matter. That would only impact the YouTube playlist that I am creating for the podcast. Now, that aside, and without further delay, I hope you enjoy my conversation with Dr. Ingrid Clayton. All right, survivors, I am so thrilled to introduce to you today Dr. Ingrid Clayton. Ingrid is a clinical psychologist who specializes in the intersection of spirituality, addiction, and trauma. Her memoir, Believing Me, Healing from Narcissistic Abuse and Complex Trauma, reveals a psychologist's awakening to her own traumatic past, and her book, Recovering Spirituality, explores spiritual bypass and its impact on recovery. Ingrid is a fellow survivor of narcissistic abuse. She is a writer for Psychology Today and has been featured in Dr. Ramani Durvasula's podcast, Navigating Narcissism, and Patrick Tehan's podcast, Our Whole Childhood, and many other podcasts. Ingrid's upcoming book called Fawning, Why the Need to Please Make Us Lose Ourselves and How to Find Our Way Back, is coming out on September 9, 2025, and is available for pre-order now. I cannot wait to get this book personally. Ingrid's deep understanding of trauma and the impacts of narcissistic abuse on mental health make her a valuable resource and voice for survivors. Ingrid, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation today. How are you feeling?
I am so excited to be here. You and I have connected for a long time. I know this is a long time coming, and I'm so grateful that you asked and that we were able to make it work. And I'm just excited for our conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Same here. I've been fangirling on you for a while now. And I'm so excited we get to have this conversation. I was hoping to start with the memoir with Believing Me. That is
Yeah.
how I heard about you. I was at a live Q&A with Dr. Ramani. I mean, at this point, it's been a while, but I remember her mentioning this memoir was going to be coming out by Dr. Ingrid Clayton, and I did not know who you were. And then I got the memoir, and I'm actually holding it right here. Believing Me,
Oh, it's going to
folks,
make
this
me
day,
cry.
I couldn't put this down. If you had a
Wow.
dollar for every time somebody tells you that, they can put me down for saying it too. This was an incredible piece of work, Ingrid.
Mm,
I was wondering to hear, because I know the memoir was the healing process for you, a part of it.
yes, yes. Hmm.
How how has your experience been since you released the memoir, and how has that shaped the rest of your healing so far?
Oh, well, thank you for holding it, and I'm getting emotional about it. Yeah, that
Mm,
my life today would not be my life today if it wasn't for the call to write that book. I won't even say publishing it. It was the call to write, the call to get my experiences down on the page so I could get just a little bit of space from them to be able to see them through a trauma therapist's eyes. And when I did, it was, shocking and unbelievably healing to see it and to connect with myself in that way. And so, the writing of my memoir was about a 5 year process, on and off, but a lot of on, right? And the writing and the rewriting and the unpacking and the layers, right? Which we know about complex trauma. It's like there's always another layer waiting for you. And interestingly, part of what pulled me through that process was thinking about, like, well, what does the reader need, right? And this is what lets you know that I was the perfect author for my current book on the fawn response, because I was more interested in what the reader needed in order to be able to take from my story than even what I needed. And yet, that's also what I think is a superpower of the fawn response, right? Which is privileging other people's needs and wounds over our own, and sort of caretaking and appeasing them at the same time. And yet, it was the thing that allowed me to spend this amount of time after receiving countless no's. I can't tell you how many agents I reached out to publish that book traditionally. And, it was like, memoir is a hard sell. And I heard it all, right? And so, also as a relational trauma survivor, to have so many no's, and yet my body kept saying, you have to do this, you got to keep going, you got to keep going. And my husband, I'll have to give him a little credit, being like, Ingrid, you got to keep going. So really, that process, it was it's not like I had repressed memories my whole life. I knew my story, but there was something different about getting it on the page that validated it for me in a way that nothing had prior, that I could even see that I had complex trauma. I wasn't comfortable using that language before. No therapist that I saw ever gave it to me, right? um, and so publishing it at the end of the day really was the final sort of my final stamp of approval on my own story, right? Because for so many of us, we want it to be validated by this person or that community, and we get really hung up on needing someone else to validate us. And writing my story and then self-publishing it, which honestly, when I first started writing, I was adamant that I would never self-publish. I mean, adamant. I really thought, who would self-publish a memoir, first of all, and then a memoir on childhood trauma? Like, I could not fathom a world where that would happen. And cut to 5 years later, I love that I self-published it. It was another extension of my healing, where I said, this book is for me. I'm publishing it for me, by me. I chose the title, I chose the artwork, I chose every single word on every single page. And then this is what makes me emotional, Raysa. Someone like you goes and they reads it and they pick it up and they send me a beautiful card in the mail, like an actual card in the mail to say how much it touched you. Like, this to me is the magic of healing complex trauma, that our body knows what to do. It knows how to do it. It knows what we need if we can get out of the way and let it happen. And essentially, that's what this entire process of the memoir was for me.
Mm.
And fast forward, to today, where I have another book coming out. I didn't see another book on the horizon. It was like, it's changed my life, right? It's changed my life in so many ways. So that was a long answer to your question, but it's what came.
It's exactly what it needed to be. And uh mm, I'm feeling it. And here's the thing about your book in particular that was so touching for me. I At the time I started reading Believing Me, I was still in that camp of, was it that bad? Do I belong to these groups? What am I doing in these support groups? And at this point I was facilitating them too. So it's like, like, is this my place? And then I started reading your book, and you put name to a lot of things that I didn't realize were complex trauma, for starters. And also, when I saw your story and I would read, I was like, okay, this is bad. This is bad. I can
Right.
hear it. Why do I recognize it for other people? But if I am saying the same thing, all of a sudden I'm second guessing myself here.
Yes.
And there's something that you did, and I feel like I'm gonna selfishly ask you this because I've been so willing, or I've been wanting for you to talk a little bit more about this. And I feel like your story, when you do other interviews, it doesn't come up very often, is the singing part. When you
Oh,
talked
that's
about
so
the singing
interesting.
part, girl, I I didn't realize how much. And I was talking to another guest, Ali Boyce, about this on the podcast. My fawning, Ingrid, they follow me on stage. The abusers got to choose the songs that I was singing. They had to say on what I was singing, on what I was gonna wear, how the hair was gonna look, how the stage presence was gonna be. The moment I stepped off stage, every single thing I did was micromanaged and criticized to the T. And I never thought in a million years that the trauma was touching the singing too.
Wow.
And when I read that part of your book, I was like, "Oh my fucking hell." Like, this
Yeah.
too, I had no idea. And
Yes.
in your story, how your singing was used, it was a source of narcissistic supply. And
Yes.
also, it was used to get you to behave in certain ways. That was basically the carrot that got dangled that led to the Las Vegas trip.
That's right. It was used to groom me, right? To sort of say, I see that you really want this and you're really interested in this. So I'm going to support you if you come along and do what I want you to do. So
That's it.
absolutely. And also, I'm not sure if I articulated it this way in the writing, but we're talking about our voice as the instrument. So we often talk about that in a metaphorical sense, right? In terms of relational trauma, like, oh, we lost our voice.
Mhm.
This was also in a very literal sense, that our singing voice, our instrument, was being corrupted in this way. And this is a slight tangent, but it's related to the voice that I've often thought about. That, yeah, and for the listener who doesn't know my story, I'm a clinical psychologist now, but I started out wanting to be a rock star, right? Like, I was a blues singer, and I studied music for a while, and I sang in a lot of bands, and my stepdad had me singing with him in bands as like a 13-year-old, right? Sort of. So that was a huge part of my life for a long time. But what's interesting to me now is that I don't sing as much. And there's a part of me that I go, it kind of pains me, right? Because it was such a huge part of my life. But what I think is true, at least to a certain degree, singing, although it was used in this way to groom me, it was also the one place, particularly as a kid, that I could have a big voice. I was a little white girl singing the blues, right? Because I could belt and I could be powerful, but it could only really be in the song itself. The second that the song was over, I went back to being sort of like, who do you need me to be? And I would be timid and all these things. And I think in my life, the more that I have healed, the more that I have reclaimed my voice in the rest of my life, the less it has had to remain solely in the safety of a song.
Mm. Yeah, that is so interesting that you're talking about it that way because I it's to me it's so wild how like the way we perceive our internal world is not how other people perceive us. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because I've seen you put out your original song Deep Inside and I
Oh,
hear you
yeah.
singing the intro for your variety show, your stand-up comedy
Oh,
show on YouTube.
yes.
So like I'm perceiving it like, oh, she's recovered her voice in singing, but it's thank you for sharing how that actually feels like for you because I didn't even think about it that way in terms of how the singing thing shows up for me. Like, I feel like I'm even fawning as I sing. Like, I am changing how I am. Like, I'm looking at everybody on the in the audience, like depending on how they're reacting. Let me try something different. Maybe if I walk a little bit on stage, they'll like it better. And I see them smiling more now. Let me keep that going. So
Yes.
it's so fascinating how this impacts our lives and how it evolves as we keep healing.
That's right. Yeah, and that it could show up even differently for you and I, right? That and not that I didn't fawn on stage because of course I did, but I think recovering my voice for me is more about my being able to sit here with you today and have this conversation as candidly and as openly as I can. I don't feel nervous, I don't feel shame, I don't feel confused, right? I feel sturdy and solid and like I'm here and I don't owe anyone an apology. That's recovering my voice, right? Is using it in this way that I don't have to hide in my real life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And for your voice and what you're saying to be taken at face value as well, you know? To
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
experience on the other side of like
Mm,
those of us that are going, we believe you, Ingrid, and what happened to you
right.
was that bad. And this journey that you've been on is exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
And we support you.
That is the other thing when you say, how has publishing the memoir impacted me? Of course, I publish it going, no one's really going to read it. And then if they read it, of course, I'm still thinking, even after all those years of writing it, I'm like, they're going to say, Ingrid, that wasn't really traumatic. I was waiting. I was waiting, right? Not one person, maybe they thought it, but I will tell you, not one person in the almost 3 years now since I published my memoir has ever said anything like, gosh, I was really kind of wondering, like, was it that bad? Like, they've all said, I see you, I get it, and you're telling my story. So that was the other thing is I thought this experience is so unique, no one's going to identify. That shocked me, in fact,
Yeah.
to hear so many people say, you are telling my story in a way I couldn't even articulate it. That blew me away. It still does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the community that we find also is it's life changing.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And I've been wondering because I've known you or I've known of you for a while now, so I've seen the evolution of how your interviews change. And I remember
Mm,
back when you talked to Dr. Ramani, you were
yeah.
still vacillating about the was it that bad. I remember you sharing that in your conversation with her. And
Yes.
like here we go a few years later, you're about to release your next book. And I hear you more almost like you're believing yourself even more now?
Yeah, I don't question it.
Yeah.
I don't
Wow.
question it. But you're so right. That's such a great memory for me to even recall. Like driving out to Ramani's studio to record her podcast, right? Here she is, the expert on narcissistic abuse. And I'm actually wondering, even though she'd already propped me up and given me such like a glowing review for the book and all of these things, I was like,
Yeah.
maybe, right, she's going to find a hole that I'm not aware of. And that is why people like Romani are so important and powerful, because I'm looking at her and I'm going, she's the expert, right? She has all of the credentials. I mean, she has in some ways the same credentials that I have, but mine don't matter, right? Of course, I got to look to somebody else and go, wait a second. And she has been in this space with narcissism for so long, which is not my expertise. But
Mm-hmm.
for her to validate not just me, but all of us in that way, what she has done for survivors is beyond, because she had to stand in the fray of, and she still does, right, of criticism and all kinds of, but she
Yeah.
said, I don't care, I am going to support survivors anyway. And for her to do that for me, even personally, she's changed my life.
Yeah.
She's hands down changed my life. And so as a result, yes, here I am years later. I don't wonder anymore. I don't know when the, it, the scales tipped. There's a lot of stuff I'm still working on, but that isn't one of the things.
Wow.
Yeah.
I my inner kiddo right now is so excited to hear that. Because I'm not quite there yet. I will echo Dr. Ramani's work, and I'm just so glad I found her on YouTube that the day that I did,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
changed everything. And
Mm,
her work is, as you say, it's just instrumental, and she's still going at it.
I
It's
know.
incredible. And
Yes.
I I have the podcast on the thing, and I talk about the complex PTSD, and I don't say who my abusers are publicly yet, but I still have that little thing like in the back of my head every time an episode comes out, and it's like, okay, this is gonna be the week where I'm gonna get the DM, and the DM's gonna be like, what the fuck are you doing? This is not trauma, and you don't belong here. And it's interesting to hear, and this is one of the things that I love about you, that you have such, your way of presenting things has so much heart, Ingrid. This
Hmm.
is something that I was telling a friend of mine about, a conversation coming up, and she was in a workshop that I hosted you on a few years ago now.
Oh, yes,
And
yes,
yeah, the
yes.
Fawning workshop we were
Yes,
talking about.
my word. Yes.
Yeah, that's gonna be a book very soon. I can't wait.
Gosh, isn't that
But
amazing?
It it is, and here's the thing. I've taken my share of workshops and things, and something about you is, you, when I hear you talk, I hear a survivor that happens to be also a PhD and a clinical psychologist, not a clinical psychologist who happens to be a survivor. Like, you have survivorship front and center when you speak. And that's what excites me about this book coming out, because fawning is, if I have a default, fawning and freezing is like the duo mix, with fawning being front and center for me. And
Mm,
I was hoping to hear a little bit more about fawning and your approach to it, because for a long time, to me, fawning was this thing that I wanted to get rid of. I was sick and tired of doing it, and I wanted it gone out of my life. And then I started to hear you talk a little bit more about fawning, and like, I'm not supposed to decimate fawning. It's still supposed to be there for when it's needed,
that's
not
right.
100% of the time like I have been doing.
Right. That's right. So, um, gosh, thanks for reminding me of the workshop. I love that. And yes, so, when and first talking about me leading with my survivorship. In fact, when I wrote this book proposal and was talking to the different publishing houses and things, I flat out said that to all of them in the meetings. I said, if you want someone who's going to write a traditional self help book and they're going to lead with their expertise, I'm not the person to write that book, right? I am going to lead with my story and my clients' stories from the lived experience, because I believe the lived experience is the most healing and helpful thing for all of us, right? I do have some other ideas and I'm pulling in the theories and all that fun stuff, but
Mhm.
I literally talk about it like, I'm leading with my heart and my PhD's in my back pocket, and that's where it's going to stay. So I love that that's what you experience with me. It's so
Mhm.
validating to hear. But So, yes, I think when I learned about fawning, and it was really through writing the memoir that I learned of Pete Walker's work, I was like, oh my word, this thing makes me make sense to myself for the first time. And what I liked about it is actually what I interpreted anyway from it. If you're talking about it as a trauma response, well, trauma responses are designed to keep us safe. How can that be a bad thing? Right? No one would say, like, oh gosh, I hope I never run from a dangerous situation again. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't say that. I hope I never, fight back if it could actually save my life. It's like, so the same is true for the fawn response, right? It's designed to keep us safe when we're relationally unsafe. We're never going to get rid of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I can look back and I can go, I haven't been this emotional about my story in a while, but I'm getting really emotional about talking to you today. So I talk about a story in the memoir about being in the hot tub with my stepdad. And it's the first time that I realized, like, oh, something is not right here. And I immediately went to Fawn. Like, I can't let him know that I'm terrified because that's going to make it worse, right? I can't fight back because he's grooming me. There's nothing really to fight back against. It's not overt, it's very covert, it's psychologically manipulative. So my whole body is saying this is wrong, but on the outside, someone watching could be like, nothing's happening here, right? So my body went right into the fawn response. Nothing to see here. I play along, go along, get along. That kept me safe time and time and time again. I am so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that. And to your other point, we are not meant to live in survival mode 24/7. Okay? So if someone can't get on off the treadmill from running, you go, "Oh yeah, well that's problematic, right? You need to rest."
Mm-hmm.
And because for most fawners, we come from childhood trauma, we our body started working with this trauma response as our body was developing, as our relationships were developing. It tended to be in a complex trauma situation, which means pervasive, ongoing, no end. So we, of course, develop a chronic coping mechanism, this chronic experience of fawning. And then we don't know, where do I end and where does fawning begin?
Mm.
That's when it's problematic. Most of the people that I've even worked with, right? Like, I'm thinking of one of the clients in my book, which there are 7 who have given me their whole story, Raysa, to say, like, here you go. Like, I hope that it helps. Like, what else can we sort of mine and tease apart so that we can get to the nitty-gritty of the nuance? It's like blowing my mind that they did that. But one person who I'm thinking of in particular, she's like, Ingrid, I just thought I was being nice. Genuinely. She did not know that it was coupled with this deep self-abandonment. It's like this rude awakening, right? You're like, what do you mean I've been abandoning myself my whole life and I had no idea? So that really is the distinction. I think that other piece that I'm alluding to is the fact that, different from how we talk about people pleasing generally, or even codependency, which I think both of those terms have been so stigmatized. And
Yeah.
there is this feeling of like, well, why just stop it, Raysa? Just set some boundaries, just raise your self-esteem, just take care of yourself. Why wouldn't you leave? Okay. And with fawning, I go, it's an unconscious reflexive response. I had no idea I was doing it. It came online before I could even get a sense of what was happening.
Yeah.
And so let's stop beating ourselves up, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no one chooses to make themselves small. It's not like we're sitting there going, oh, I'm going to minimize myself and prioritize everyone else's needs. Nobody does that. We do it out of survival. And when it works, the body does it again and again. And it says, I will never let myself be that vulnerable. And so
Mm-hmm.
it not only speaks to like what happened and why we continue to do it, but it speaks to the process of, what I'm calling unfawning, which is in fact a process, not a finish line. Like, I'm so over this idea even of healed or unhealed, or fawning or not fawning. It's like, let's be real here. I still have a body. I still have a nervous system, and I still live in a context where there are more hierarchies than I could sit here and name right now. There are power structures everywhere we turn. My body is going to fawn because that's where it found some semblance of control or power when I had none. And I don't want to live there all the time. I want to have more flexibility. I want to have more agency. I want to have more choice. And I think we can find those things. But if we keep shaming people for having a fawn response and for staying there as long as their body needed to, those choices, that agency, it's likely never going to come because the shame is too high. And you know what we need in order to drop our defenses is to also be able to drop a little bit of the shame. And it's also why I lead with my survivorship, because hopefully it's like if anybody hears me in any format or reads what I've written, it's like, well, she has a lot of answers, and she's been in this field a long time, and she's still in a body with a nervous system and saying she fawned yesterday. Maybe it's okay that I am too. And if that's the only thing I ever do for folks, then sign me up, right? It's like, great.
Well, I can tell you've done it for me. So, mission accomplished. I'm going to
Oh,
give you the check. You did it recently. You were talking about a game that your son was in, and you were talking
yes.
about how you fawned. And like, just, I've heard you say it before, but
Yeah,
there's something about the repetition. There's something about hearing someone being vulnerable and admit, hey, it's happening to me too. It's not like you're on the other end and fawning has been behind you for 5 years since the memoir got published or whatever. Like,
no.
it's what I love about your approach is that you're constantly trying to deshamify
Yes.
fawning.
Yes.
Even the concept of treating fawning with shame is trauma to me in and of itself. It's
That's
just
right.
piling trauma on top of it.
Oh,
And
100%. You want to keep a fawn or fawning? Tell them they're doing something wrong.
yeah.
It's like you going out on stage being like, oh, they wanted me to turn left when I should have turned right. We smell it a mile away.
Yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't fawn. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to fawn and make it look like I ain't fawning. We
Mhm.
smell it. We know the agenda before someone else can even utter the words. And so,
Yeah.
particularly with fawning, where we are so quick to shape shift and morph into whatever the situation needs me to be, most of my clients were so adept at performing healing, at performing compliance, at performing being a good client, at working so hard, at reading all the books, at doing all the things. And then guess what? The shame even goes higher and higher because they go, I've done so much work. Why do I still feel this way? It's like, well, because you're treating yourself like you're a project and you're broken and you need to be fixed, when none of that is true. None of that was true then. None of it is true right now. You get to be exactly who you are and where you are. And let's see how all of it makes sense. It's like a radical paradigm shift, right? From broken to healed, or I'm all better now, and to like, how do you make sense right now? That has to be the starting point.
Mm. Oh, you gotta sit with that. So many. You're nailing it so much right now, and God, I'm thinking about even in my own healing how the black and white thinking that all or nothing still runs me,
Yeah, me
and
too.
a lot of the discomfort that I'm experiencing, especially now, is I have a new therapist and we're doing the noticing. So I'm in the noticing stage, not supposed to be doing anything
Great.
about it.
I love that.
uh, well, I hopefully I'll get to love it too. Right now, it feels like hell,
Yes.
just like because
Yes.
I am at that stage where like I am noticing that I fawn 20 minutes after I fawned. And
Yeah.
then I feel the shame of like, oh my fucking God, I couldn't stop it. What the hell? And
Yeah.
like I'm getting closer to like at first it was 20 minutes, now it's like 15 minutes. I'm hoping to get to 10. And the shame is going down a little bit, like here and there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like the reason it feels so uncomfortable for me to do this work is the fact that the fawning was there to keep me safe.
Yeah.
The keeping the abusers appeased and happy and as calm as we can perceive them, that we can make them feel like, because the whole fallacy of the thing is I was never going to calm them down. They were
Yeah,
always going to
not
blow
for
up.
long. Yeah.
Right. So doing the healthy thing, and I'm doing quotation marks for those of you that are just listening, is I am going to do exactly what they don't want me to do. I'm going to set the boundary. At this point, I went no contact. So I did exactly the thing they were dreading me to do, and the
Yes.
thing that I know pissed them off.
Yeah.
And I had to sit down with my nervous system feeling like fire's going out,
That's right.
and then just sit there and be like, at one point it will go off, I guess. I don't know.
But
So
that is the point. That is such a good point, and why we
mm,
can't ever tell anybody just stop doing that thing that keeps you safe, because
yeah.
really what you're asking them to do, and it's what I'm asking you to do, it's what I'm asking me to do, is
Hmm.
we got to walk to the fire. We got to
Yeah.
walk through the fire that we've been avoiding so skillfully in some ways our entire lives. We are becoming fire tenders. That's like, that's what our new job title is. And it is the bravest, hardest, most painful, scary freaking work to do. We're saying go towards the pain, go towards the threat, go to and go without the defense that has kept you safe. It's like, who would choose that? But you know who does? Survivors, the people that are sick and tired of living with these handcuffs on. We go, I will do anything.
Yeah.
And what I continue to find, I know this is true for you too, it's like, if it wasn't ultimately better, none of us would keep doing, right? If it wasn't abundantly actually worth it,
Hmm.
no one would do this, because
Right.
what we're asking ourselves to do and our bodies to do is, it's profound. We're literally saying, take down the defense that has saved you and walk towards the thing that was trying to kill you. And we do it. And we do it. And then we go, I'm still here. I'm still here. I didn't die. I had my own back. That was terrifying. But there's a part of me that kind of feels better about myself, right? It's like this recalibration that's happening.
Yeah.
But it is scary. It feels like jumping off a cliff. That's what every single client told me. Their version of it was like, basically, it's like jumping off a cliff.
Yeah.
Ah, that's what we're doing here.
And without the parachute on.
No, yeah, no sense of what's below.
No.
You have no personal experience, right? It's not like we have this lifetime of reciprocal healthy relationships and someone's going to catch us when we fall, right? Or yeah, our only resources, we're literally putting down our resources. We are jumping off a cliff bare naked and you cannot see the ground.
Hmm. That's
And
exactly it.
then we find that unbeknownst to us, we could fly.
Oh, I'm gonna snap for that. Oh, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And for me, those flying moments, I get them. I've experienced the little flying moment. They're tiny and short lived, because the system kind of wants to go back to the old thing. But
Mhm.
for me, is I said no to the thing, and the person didn't get pissed off, and I'm still here. All right.
Yeah.
I flew for 2 seconds. I figured out that I am queer in my late 30s now, like mid to late
Oh my
30s.
God.
Flying, girl.
I was
Flying.
gonna say that ain't no tiny flight. You like,
That's a big one.
you did a trip around the world on that one. Come
Yeah.
on. That's
Yeah. Thank you.
amazing.
Thank
Talk
you.
about no more self-abandonment and being like, this is who I am, and
Yeah.
owning it.
Yeah.
Ah,
I
I have
know.
goosebumps. I'm flying.
Thank you. Thank you for saying it. It's those are the things. And here's the thing, Ingrid, I wasn't just closeted to them and like hiding in the closet thinking I couldn't come out. I didn't fucking know.
No, I believe it. I didn't
Months
even,
and
yeah.
months after going no contact, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I think I am bi. Huh, how about that?
Wow.
Like
Wow.
it's incredible what's on the other side. And I know that I am no contact, and I know a lot of you have heard me talk about the no contact. It's not the only way. There's so many ways we can go about this, but the key, I think, to me is that part in the subtitle of your new book coming out, which is getting ourselves back.
Back. Yeah. Or finding ourselves for the first time. To your point, it's not like you had that nugget tucked away. You didn't even know. And I think that that's actually true for most of us. It's like, and I think I talked about this around the memoir. It's like as I was writing my way through my own story, I was like, I'm a real life boy, like Pinocchio, right? It was like, oh, I literally was feeling like my own flesh on my body. I'm inhabiting this thing and I'm actually here. And what does that mean? And
Yeah.
these are the discoveries that we get to make. And
Hmm.
I mean, I can't think of anything better, really. I cannot think. Listen, long before any of this work, I worked a lot in addiction because I'm clean and sober almost 30 years. And I will tell you, this work now of reclaiming myself and discovering myself and owning who I am and leaning into it, it is better than any drug I ever took.
Mm.
It is the thing that I was seeking in everything else I've ever tried. This is it. This is it.
Wow. Oh, I need to sit that with that for a moment, and I want to say to you, congratulations on
Mm.
3 decades
Oh,
choosing
thank
yourself over the substances. And
Yeah,
I'm
thank
so
you.
glad you found what you were looking for
Oh,
because, yeah,
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 I did. I
you
really
did.
did.
Heck
And
yeah,
it
you
doesn't
did.
have the consequences. It doesn't, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't take me out of my life. It actually puts me more in it. I found
Yeah.
beyond what I was looking for,
Yeah.
right? I thought that what I found was always kind of had to be coupled with like a whole lot of heartbreak and shame. And turns out that's not true.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad I get to listen to this conversation later because I feel like you're dropping a lot of stuff that I'm half processing and I feel like I'm gonna be processing them for a bit. Oh my gosh. Okay. I also wanted to ask you about, so I know the work is never done, but I'm curious to hear because sounds like Fawning is gonna be a different book from Believing Me.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to hear like what is your relationship with Fawning these days as you're getting ready to release this thing into the world?
Well, yes, it is a very different book, although I use my own story as the spine of the Fawning book because I didn't use a lot of clinical language in the memoir, and I did that by design.
Hmm.
So now I'm using a lot of my story, but it's like I'm almost pausing in the middle to point out, like, here it is, here it is, here it is, here's how it worked, here's how it kept me stuck. I'm also bringing in, like I said, 7 clients. So their stories are really the star of the show with a real diverse set of experiences and contexts. And, so you can see how it, because Fawning presents so differently depending on the person, but also depending on the context,
Oh wow.
right? It could be the context of patriarchy. It could be racism. It could be a workplace, a boss who's a bully. It could be childhood trauma. And so let's look at all the different ways that it shows up. But also, you know, I really wanted to break down not just the context, but the symptoms. How does this present? Because there really is not a lot of literature out there on the fawn response, right? So
No.
even though I think there's a lot we still need to learn, but that's true with everything, I wanted to say, how can we sort of unpack this experience as fully as possible from the lived experience perspective right now? And that was my goal. And my goal was to do it without fawning, okay? Because now suddenly I'm not a self published author. I have this wonderful publisher. It's the biggest publisher in the world. So suddenly I have someone that I need to please, and I have a deadline, and I have all the things. So guess what happens in my body? I go, I can't do it. And what do they need me to be? Because do they know that I can't? You know what I mean? All the imposter syndrome, you name it. Everything, of course, was going to arise for me in this process. But I'll cut to the chase and I'll say, here's the thing. I wrote this book very quickly, only in part because, let's face it, I've been writing this book since that hot tub moment, right? I've been writing this book my whole life. That's the truth of it. But I wrote this book very, very quickly, from pen to paper. And at the end, I knew what I turned in to my editor was the book that I set out to write.
Mm.
I did not compromise what I wanted to say or how I wanted to say it. There were a lot of things I had to fight for. I had to fight to keep my client stories intact. I did not want to cut them up and chop them up into little bits and here and there. I did not want to make it super prescriptive and essentially lie to people and say, Raysa, if you do these 33 things that, trademark Ingrid Clayton, I have discovered just for you,
Uh-huh.
though that probably would sell more books, okay? Because it's very sexy message. But I said, I ain't gonna do it. I'm not gonna put it on the page unless I genuinely believe it and feel like it's true and it represents not just my heart, but again, the seven hearts of people who have
Mm.
given me their whole experience. And so this book to me is already a giant success because I turned in the book that I set out to write, and I did not fawn or compromise any part of my voice in order to do it. And that feels so good. I can't even tell you.
Mm. I can I can feel in your voice and how you're talking about is how significant this is, and I'm so fucking proud of you. That's amazing.
Yay, thank
And
you.
yes, and I'm gonna point out something that I'm noticing it because I know I do it. I
Yeah.
think it's so interesting. People
Mm.
like me, like I am so much better advocating for other people than for
Yes.
me. And
Yeah.
I could hear as you were saying, like, of course you went to bat for your 7 clients because it's like
Because
automatic.
they
And
matter. Oh my
yes,
God.
they
I
do.
mean, also just the clinical relationship that I could even go to them and ask. I was a little bit like, I can't do that, right? Like to put them in that position, it was a huge deal. Um, but you're absolutely right. I was not going to let them down,
Mm.
right? And they've all read it, obviously, and they're like, this is going to change people's lives. Like they feel as proud of it as I do. So, I mean, that's just mind blowing. That's like,
It is.
yeah, it's too good to be true.
It's it's what you deserve though. You work so hard and they work so hard, like
Yes,
living
that's
their
true.
lives.
That's
It's
right.
it's something that they're I think, and that's the beautiful thing about sharing. And we all do it in in our different ways. Like I've been doing it through the podcast. Like there's something about sharing your story,
Yep.
and it's interesting. I'm yet to hear. I'm sure they're out there, but like in my experience and the survivors that I tend to gravitate towards, I'm yet to hear a survivor just putting their story out to get something like just for themselves. Like I always hear them say, "I'm sharing this thing in hopes it will help somebody else,"
That's right.
and that is the gift.
But you know what happens, and this is the same thing that happened in my memoir, is I'm like, what does the reader need, right? What the reader needed happened to be the thing that I needed.
Mhm.
Okay. So here's the thing. Some of the clients in this book I've worked with for over 16 years.
Wow.
The depth of that kind of relationship. I mean, first of all, how do you put it on the page? But here's the thing. I know these people better than anyone else in their life. And you know what happened when we sat down to talk about the material that was going to go in the book? Countless times, Raysa, they're thinking about the reader and they go, Ingrid, I don't even think I've ever told you this before. And suddenly this nugget from the depths like rises up. And it's this gift that only came similar to you not even knowing that you're queer. It's not like they were tucking something away that they were hiding from me. It was like in this process of going, we want to help more people be free of this thing because I have tasted it and I want everyone to have it. Oh my gosh, you know what would be helpful? And they tell me this thing that they have never uttered before. It happened so many times. And then we just sit there and marvel at it and go, this is incredible. And again, it was for the reader, but they get the gift in that moment. And I get it too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm emotional just hearing about it. And I
Yeah.
cannot wait
Yeah.
to read this. And if any of them are listening to this, thank you. Thank you for doing
Oh,
this because It matters, Ingrid. Like, that's
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think that is the one thing that I will say, or one of the gifts that comes from the social media movement and us being able to share our stories, and for them to have the reach that they get to have because of the technological era that we live in.
Yeah.
It's I I know I've done it with you. Like, I've worked with survivors and I've seen so many. I was a psych major. I didn't fucking know that I had C-PTSD. That wasn't even in
Yeah.
the classes back in
I
2006
know.
because
Me neither. That's
Pete's
right.
book
Yeah.
was not even out. And
Nope.
so many like people from all different backgrounds, psychologists, psychiatrists, teachers, I mean, anybody. And at the end of the day, we had the narcissistic abuse survivorship in common, and we had failed to see it. And I remember using you a lot as an example. Like, look, a clinical psychologist who specialized in complex trauma didn't know either. There's nothing wrong with you.
That's
It's
right.
not about academic intelligence or logic. It's none of that. At the end of the day, it goes back to the trauma response just takes over. And that betrayal blindness is so sneaky, Ingrid.
That's right. It's one aspect of the fawn response. It's like this hybrid response. One part is leaning in and hypervigilant and managing the moods and monitoring and appeasing and shape-shifting, and it's very active, right? That's a hyper arousal. That's a fight flight. That's an aspect of fight flight. But at the same time, we have the hypo arousal, which is the disconnection, dissociation, depression, that down regulation where we disconnect from self. We disconnect so far that a lot of times we don't even know what we're doing. We don't know why we're doing it. We can't identify the harm that's being done. That is real.
Yeah.
That is real.
Mm.
I was going to say something else. You were saying something and I lost it. Darn it. Oh, I hope it comes back. If it was
I
important, it will.
hope so too.
You're saying too many good things. I'm like, oh, I want to respond to each of
Shoot.
them.
I sometimes
Yeah.
keep going. That's on me too. Uh hopefully it comes back. And
Yeah.
if
Yeah. We'll
if not,
see.
maybe we can you can let me know. Maybe I can add it to the episode like post production or something, and
Okay. We'll
then
see.
I
We'll
get
see.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I I know we're starting to come down to the hour. I want to make sure that you feel complete, and I'm wondering if there's anything you wish I would have asked you that I haven't yet.
Well, the thing came back. So let me start with that.
Oh,
That
let's
I
do it.
also wanted to say it's not just that our trauma responses were obscuring our ability to see it. Like I have clients and I know people that are going into training right now into grad school to be therapists, and we are still woefully understanding, recognizing, teaching anything about complex trauma. So
Hmm.
I think as a field, right, and we know this to be true in the United States, is that we still don't even have a real diagnosis for complex PTSD. It's like we're still debating these things, which makes me want to pull my hair out.
Yeah.
So we really come by our not knowing honestly, internally, but externally as well. And so that's the other reason why I brought the clinical lens and language into the Fawning book too, because we need to legitimize this once and for all.
Yeah.
That's the goal here, quite frankly, is like we got to stop blaming victims. We got to get out of this like ridiculous pathologizing thing we've done for too long. So that was the other thing that came. So I'm glad that it came. And
I'm
was
glad
there
too.
anything that you know? I want to say, I just mostly want to reflect back. I think because you have known me for so long, like, I've done a ton of podcasts and I'm having lots of interesting conversations right now with different people. But your tenderheartedness and your being a witness to my process has brought me to a very tender place today that I'm so grateful to experience. It's like really connecting me back again in a different way with like the heart of this work and where I come from. And this is a very weird thing to say, but it almost came out spontaneously before I stopped it. So I'm going to say it anyway, which is I feel more me talking to you than I have felt lately because I'm having to do a lot of like, okay, go and have the conversation and be Dr. Ingrid Clayton, right? And I feel like I just get to be Ingrid here in this space and still talk about all these things in a really juicy way. And that's such a gift. So thank you for it.
Thank you so much for the feedback. It's been my pleasure and my honor. I've been so excited to talk to you, and yeah, I feel like I totally listened to every word you said, and I can't wait to take that in for the next few days. It's
Oh,
gonna be hitting me
good.
in waves.
I
I
love it.
it's I've meant every word, and the thing about you is just you've done it every time I hear you speak.
Mm,
There's something that you bring to the way you present yourself that is just very relatable.
mm.
That's the thing. Like I feel like, and I've talked a little bit about this, but not a lot on the podcast. Like the reason I sometimes do these episodes with movies or shows or songs, because I remember being in psych class and all the terms and you're trying to memorize it for the test and
Oh,
it's
God.
just
Yeah.
going over your head. Like tell me what gaslighting is and read me the definition from the dictionary.
Right.
Show me the movie Gaslight and point out what it looks like in the real world. And all of a sudden I go, oh shit, I've been gaslit so many times and I didn't even know it. Like
Yes.
there's something about and I think that's why it matters, Ingrid.
Mm.
We people who have complex PTSD, complex trauma is relational trauma
That's right.
and we need relational healing. Like just definition is not gonna cut it.
That's right. That's right. It's so big. I wrote about that in this book too. That like the more that I lead with like I'm a clinician, the more I just continue to uphold the same systems of power and oppression that make people think that I'm better than and
Mm.
you're never going to be here or I'm healed and you're not and I'm just not going to participate in that anymore. I think as a field, we have to really look at that this idea of expert and patient, right? They're not sick people. These are my clients, they're my family practically. It's like these are real relationships I'm having with real people. I'm a real person. And I think honestly, that's probably half of the healing that's been done is just let's drop in and have a real relationship, you know? So that's deeply important to me.
I love that you said that. In fact, I've been reflecting about a little bit about that concept lately because I feel like the moments where I feel like I flew, even if it's like an inch, are the moments where I'm allowed to be a human being, where the perfectionism and the performing and the all the stuff just goes away, and I get to just be this imperfect person who makes mistakes, who fucks up, who gets scared, who gets anxious, and it's allowed.
But look at the metaphor you just used spontaneously. I get to fly when I drop all the masks. Of course we do.
Oh, I didn't even
I know, but
oh,
that's basically what you said.
yeah.
When I
Oh,
drop all the shit that you need me to be, who knew I'm suddenly flying. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah. The shame weighs us down. That's it. That's why we
Weighs us
can't fly
down.
with it. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Oh my gosh, Ingrid, I could talk to you for like 30 more hours, but I want to be mindful of your time. There is a question I asked for all the guests here at Hello Trauma Brain, and it is if you could go back to a difficult time, what would you tell younger Ingrid?
Ooh, I've got you. I've got you.
I love that so much. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. I so thrilled you were able to say yes today to this conversation. I've really enjoyed this. It's been such
Me
a
too.
nourishing time for me. For anyone who's new and interested in your work, what is the best way to find you?
All the places. My website's ingridclayton.com. I'm on Instagram as at Ingrid Clayton PhD. I'm on Substack for longer form stuff now. Yeah, the pre-order of Fawning is up or anywhere you buy your books. All the places. Come find me. There's great community happening. You're a part of it. We laugh and I love that. And it also gets pretty serious, but yeah, come find me.
And for anyone who wants to get in touch with Ingrid, no worries. In the show notes, I'm going to link everything so you're able to find Ingrid and get in touch with her and experience the magic of being in part of this community. And you can pre-order her new book, Fawning, coming out in September. Ingrid, I want to take a moment to recognize you for your work.
Mm.
I don't know if you remember this, but I remember emailing you to tell you I was thinking about this podcast many moons ago. And and I was so scared about publicly telling my story, and you were so encouraging, and I just want to thank you for being one of the many voices that were able to hold me in the fear and push me forward. And thank you
Mm.
for your memoir. This thing has been a game changer for me. Believing me has it gave me so much language. I believe you, and I was able to believe me
Mm.
too.
Mm. Mm.
And I'm so thankful for your presence here today and for being a part of Hello Trauma Brain.
I'm so grateful. Thank you, Raysa. We'll do it again.
Yes, we love that. Thank you so much. All right, survivors, checking in. How are you feeling after hearing my conversation with Ingrid? Few things I want to add in response to Ingrid's beautiful words. Thank you, and you are welcome. I struggle when I am getting positive feedback and tend to freeze and not know what to say, and it totally happened during my conversation with Ingrid. A funny side note is that during our conversation, when Ingrid was talking about someone who read the book and sent her this beautiful card, not gonna lie, at the time, internally, I was on a bit of a shame spiral. And the shame spiral was my inner critic coming in to say, why didn't you send a card? If you loved the memoir as much as you say, you should have been the person who sent that card. I can't believe that didn't occur to you. Then I reheard the episode, and it was on the second listen that all of a sudden I started getting this vague memory of seeing Ingrid's address on one of her email newsletters on the bottom and actually sending a card. But of course, not even then did I realize or was 100% sure. I actually ended up DMing Ingrid to ask her. She was like, "Yeah, it was you." I swear, this is wild how my brain works because it literally can forget something I did to prioritize the shame. Like my brain is so hardwired to be so hard on me and so critical. And I think part of it is that one of my abusers was very critical of me. And they always found a way of pointing out how I didn't do enough or was thoughtful enough. Turns out it's still running me, even though I've been in no contact with that person for quite a while now. Also, it is not lost on me that Ingrid celebrated my queerness in such a wonderful way. I talk about this in my coming out episode from season one, but some people I thought would celebrate me did not. And I stopped coming out to people that knew me before my healing because it hurts. Pride Month is around the corner, and I totally needed that beautiful moment that Ingrid gifted me. So thank you, Ingrid. And I'm so glad it is documented and I can go back and experience it anytime I want, which is the beauty of the podcast format. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation and stay right where you are. This week's healing invitation is coming right up. In this week's healing invitation, I want to offer you a few things to reflect about. Inspired by this week's guest, I want to invite you to reflect on the fawning response and how it impacts your life. It is really hard to pinpoint fawning when you are so used to your own behavior. I want to share some questions you can use to reflect on whether you might be a fawner. These happen to be from one of Ingrid's Instagram posts. Have you ever apologized to someone who has hurt you, trying to diffuse a tense situation? Have you ever befriended your bullies, making them laugh to bring them onto your side? Have you ever ignored a partner's bad behavior, knowing it would be worse if you spoke up? Have you ever worried about saying the right thing, even if there's no right thing to say? Have you ever stayed too late to finish a work assignment, hoping for acknowledgement from your boss? Have you ever made yourself into someone you're not, hoping for approval that may never come? If the answer to a lot of these questions is yes, you might be a fawner. If so, you are in good company. If a lot of the answers were no, I will still argue learning about fawning is important because chances are you might be interacting with fawners without realizing it. I invite you to get curious this week and notice if you engage or see someone engaging in these behaviors. We are not changing anything just yet, just noticing. Then reflect on what you find. Please let me know in the comments how this week's healing invitation goes if you choose to accept it. Before we wrap up this episode, all music and production is courtesy of yours truly. Also, I want to share a few ways you can support this podcast. You can subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or the platform that you are using to listen. Share this episode with anyone you think could find this podcast helpful. Subscribe to the Hello Trauma Brain YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when I post a new episode. And you can make a donation via PayPal. I want to thank you in advance for your support. A little can go a very long way in helping the podcast reach more survivors that could benefit from finding this content. No worries, all links will be provided in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me and Ingrid today. I hope you found this episode helpful. I wish you the best as you reclaim fawning. It is time for our farewell affirmations. I invite you to repeat after me. I welcome the belief that I am enough. I am lovable. And I deserve to heal. I wish you a gentle week and thank you for your presence.